Howdy doody, I'm back to talk more about One Punch Man. One Punch is one of those stories similar to Bleach and Dragon Ball in the sense that there is a lot of fighting. I'd go as far to say that the vast majority of the storytelling is done through fights. So because of that, there's a lot of fights that happen throughout One Punch. However, there's one specific one that is one of the longest and one of the greatest, so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Now this fight is mostly between two people, a psychic named Psykos and S-Class Rank 2 Tornado or Tatsumaki. Now there's other heroes that get involved, but I'm just going to go off the assumption that all the heroes involved in this, you'll remember. Now for Psykos, her backstory would make this video longer than it needs to be, so the context you need is that Psykos was a human who was the brains behind the Monster Association. However, after all the S-Class heroes came attacking, she ended up merging bodies with the Monster King Orochi, who at the time was the strongest monster we've ever seen excluding Boros. After merging with Orochi, Tornado sees this new form come out of nowhere. So Tornado goes right out to attack Psykos, but clashes with her shield. Tornado is shocked by how strong her shield is and Psykos laughs at her. Psykos uses gravity manipulation on Tornado, and at first she says, "Do you really think this would work on me?" But then it does indeed work. Judging by the fact Psykos was using gravity manipulation, Psykos puts Tornado into a gravity ball, trapping her, and wastes no time to do what I think was just crushing her body with gravity. Then we cut to a different part of the story where Saitama and Flashy Flash are running away from essentially Psykos' monster tail. But after being touched on his bald head, Saitama gets upset and punches it, doing massive damage to Psykos. Psykos screams out in pain, and from that punch, she ended up dropping her grip on Tornado. Now, the heroes were originally there to save some civilians that were there, so after the last civilian is taken out of the Monsters Association, Tornado says that she can finally go all out, but you'll see later that was a total lie. Tatsumaki starts to pull all of the heroes out from the rubble, protected by an orb, and onto the surface. Tornado then pulls the entire Monsters Association out of the ground and onto the surface. On the very top of the building, Psykos stands ready for a second bout with Tornado. Tatsumaki realizes that Psykos is attached to the building because within it she's absorbing power from all of the remaining monsters, and realizes that if she can break the connection, she can greatly weaken her. Tornado then launches an attack. However, Psykos tells her that in terms of power, she's already above her. Psykos then releases an incredibly strong blast, hitting Tornado, literally slicing off a disc of the earth up into the air. But as amazing as it is, gravity pulled that slice back down onto the earth and it crashes. Tatsumaki is amazed by this, and Psycho goes on to gloat about how strong her new power is. Psycho then starts talking about some guy she saw while merging with Orochi, and Tornado hears this and goes on to say that Psychos must be questioning the source of her new power too. We get a quick flashback to what happened during her transformation. She had a vision of being in space, or possibly in another dimension. She says it was like looking at brain cells, or the structure of the universe, something like God. It was God, by the way. She said that she felt incredible amounts of energy flowing into her, and that in an instant, she was enlightened to her new destiny. Tornado asks what she means by destiny, and Psychos goes on to say that she now has the ability to gain power by absorbing anything alive. Psychos then finally says that her goal is to completely merge with the Earth, killing all of humanity. Tatsumaki says how she'd only end up alone, and that dream is stupid. But Psychos goes on a rant about why she thinks all humans should die, but also gets into what seems like a grudge against Tornado and her sister Fubuki. I say there may be a grudge because she goes on to say, even after seeing my power, you still won't acknowledge me. This is said to Tornado, but it appears she's thinking of Fubuki while saying it. Psychos then releases more parts of her body, these being dragon-like snakes, an ability she got from absorbing Orochi that can shoot very strong blasts out of their mouths. She says try to resist the will of Earth, chosen personally by God, while she attacks Tornado. Tatsumaki flies around avoiding all of Psychos' many attacks, but after being on the surface, Tornado had to once again wait for everyone to evacuate the area that they're now fighting in. But then once the area is clear, Tornado says once again she's able to fight with even more force. Then huge boulders begin to rise out of the ocean from where Psychos had sliced off part of the earth. Tornado pulls them up into the sky and launches them all at Psychos. Psychos successfully destroys some of the boulders, but not all of them. Tornado is able to maneuver some of them through her attacks, and Psychos tries as hard as she can to destroy them all, but ends up getting hit. She gets hit in every direction and gets trapped inside a bunch of boulders. But to Tornado's surprise, Psykos breaks out. They both then trade attacks, causing what looks like a storm up where they're fighting. Tornado flies around, avoiding debris in the air as well as the lasers Psykos is shooting, but Psykos tells her that she can't hide from her because she can just sense her power and energy. Psykos thinks she finally hit Tornado, but then sees that she was just following a clump of rocks being controlled by Tornado. Somehow, Tatsumaki got inside of Psykos' body and climbs out of her mouth, but then attempts to twist and kill Psykos. After thinking she's finally defeated her, but then suddenly, Tornado is hit by a spike. Psykos managed to not be completely destroyed by this, and was still alive, and uses two of her spear-like arms to electrocute Tornado. This nearly kills her. Due to the damage taken, Tornado's orbs carrying the heroes disappear and they fall. Psykos is very injured, but still goes on to say that she's surprised after seeing just a little bit of blood. Tornado let her guard down, and then she says that she'll kill Tornado and then her sister. But out of nowhere, a blast comes from the ground up towards Psykos. As Tornado continues to fall down, she sees something blast up towards Psykos and an electric storm begins to form above. Turns out that it's Genos charging Psykos at full speed. A random hero says that he looks like a blue dragon. Genos then charges up an attack with his body and arms looking like a dragon, and he releases an attack that's also in the form of a dragon. This move is called Thunder Drill Cannon. Right before his attack hits, Psykos releases one of her own, and she was able to reflect Genos' attack back at him, and Genos can't believe it. Psykos and Genos both release more attacks at each other. Tornado yells at Genos and says that let her handle it, but Genos says that it's his responsibility to hold off Psykos until Saitama can arrive. Genos thinks about how strong Psykos is, that even after 5 minutes of arriving to the battlefield, he's been forced to use his final resort weapon. That didn't work. He then says how he can use 100% of his power for 10 seconds, so in that time, Tornado needs to finish getting everyone out to safety and get ready for another attack on Psykos. Psykos goes on a rant about how she won't be defied and she's the final form of human evolution, and launches a blast at Tornado. But before Tornado gets hit, Genos rushes in and prepares for another move. Genos launches True Spiral Incineration Cannon, but once again Psykos uses her own blast to counter his. Their two attacks clash together, but Genos slowly starts breaking through. Genos tells Tornado to finish pulling the remaining heroes out while she's occupied, and she's finally able to do so. Genos then seems to overload and takes a heavy blow from using too much of his energy. Psykos then says that she'll finally finish him off and shoots an attack at him, but somehow it doesn't hit. It turns out Tornado was able to put a shield around them and stop her attack. Tornado says that because she doesn't have to worry about anyone else now, she can fully focus on the fight, and tells Genos he did good. Tornado then says, "Now then, Psykos was it?" Psykos says she can't even move a finger. Tornado goes on to say, "You were saying you were going to do what to my little sister?" Psykos can't believe that Tornado still hadn't been using 100% of her power. We get to see Tornado truly serious as she prepares for her next move. Mind you, Psykos' power comes from absorbing anything alive, and the bottom half of her body has been digging into the ground like roots. To handle this, Tornado starts to twist the entire city that they're in. Don't worry, it's an abandoned city. She's not killing a bunch of random people. But I mean, she's twisting the entire city, not just a few blocks. Psycho screams out in pain as her body and roots are twisted. Tornado has a pretty good line saying, "These rags are pretty wet. I need to wring them out really good." Psychos' body just keeps on getting twisted more and more as blood bursts out from the ground because of her roots. Tornado is impressed by how vast her root system is and how much she's grown, but says that she'll finally finish her off. As Tornado is starting to finally finish everything, she's struck with a ton of pain and coughs up blood. She asks herself, why did this have to happen right now? And asks herself if she's used too much power. Psychos realizes that Tornado's power has weakened. Don't ask me how, but Psychos transforms into a fucking monster jet. Not even just a monster that can fly. She's a whole ass jet. She even has a pilot mask on as she says she's going to try to get away to another city to start new routes. She uses a similar technique to Tornado where she disperses her energy into different forms, so in the smoke, Tornado can't figure out which energy to track. Psycho says that she's in luck that Tornado hit her limit, but Tatsumaki says, "Don't underestimate me," as she releases what seems to be one final attack. Tornado puts an absolutely giant barrier to keep Psykos from escaping. She explains that the barrier has two layers, one keeping things out and one keeping things in. Psykos says that the only way to get out is to strike Tornado through the heart. And she does exactly that. But it turns out that it was just a mirage and a dummy being used by Tornado to find out exactly where she was. Then out of absolutely nowhere, something comes flying in towards Psykos. Turns out it's S-Class rank 9 hero Drive Knight in his own robot jet form. Drive Knight starts chasing Psykos around. He keeps on chasing her as they both send attacks at each other. This chase goes on for way too long, so we're going to skip a lot of it. We get a quick flashback of 5 minutes ago where Drive Knight saw Tornado's fight and assumed she was fighting the boss of the monsters and wanted to get a sample of its flesh for probably not good guy reasons, and sees one of Psykos' roots and absorbs some of the energy, thus explaining his weird level of power. Tatsumaki then seems to lose consciousness, but is still holding up the barrier. Psykos starts to get more panicked and tried another attempt of taking out Tornado. Psykos shoots 4 missiles at her, and Drive Knight transforms and blocks 3 of them, but 1 gets through. However, that missile gets destroyed, and we see that it's Genos who came to Tornado's rescue. Genos sees that Tornado has fainted, and this begins a brief flashback we get to Tornado's childhood. 18 years ago, when Tornado was just a kid in a research facility, a monster that was being tested on got loose, and Tornado was left all alone. Tornado sees the monster come to her cell door, a monster far too big and strong for her to have any chance against. Even though she tries using her powers, they're no use for it, and it breaks through the door, hitting her. She later wakes up from being knocked out and hears someone say, "You can come out." Standing by the defeated monster is a hero. Tornado is amazed, and he tells her that his name is Blast, and he's a hero. And for a fun fact, Blast is S-Class rank 1, but he's just kinda never around. Blast asks her why she didn't use her power, and when she said her powers won't work, he says it's not good to lie. Blast says that he knows that she was thinking if she held back, the scientists would deem her useless and let her go. And after this, Tornado says even if she left, there's no one who'd care. Blast replies by saying that it doesn't matter because she has loved ones that she needs to protect, and that she should always protect her family. Finally, he gives her one last piece of advice about people with too much power. When the time comes, don't go expecting someone to come save you. She thinks about this as she loses the last of her strength. But then she hears her sister saying that she's coming to save her and to hang in there. But then Tornado manages to conjure up even more strength and says not to underestimate her. Drive Knight keeps on chasing Psykos around inside the barrier. He chases her into a tunnel where he keeps launching attacks. The chase continues as he complains about not being able to get a sample from her. But then Tornado starts helping and attacking Psykos by breaking parts of the tunnel. Psykos is somehow able to leap around in an animal form while also in jet form to evade Tornado's attacks. She keeps flying away but sees that now Genos is keeping up with her. Genos and Drive Knight then combine with each other to try to take out Psykos. While Drive Knight holds on to her, Genos prepares to attack, but then something happens. Part of her body expands and opens up. A blast comes out of her, hitting Drive Knight and Genos, sending them to fall to the ground, and Psykos releases yet another attack at Tornado. However, the blast is intercepted by something, and it turns out that it was Tank Top Master throwing rocks. Drive Knight then tells Genos that he wants to combine their power cores to maximize their strength. However, he does say that he isn't sure if it'll work, but Genos agrees anyway. Genos intercepts Psykos in a new samurai mech suit. Psykos also manages to shift out of her jet form and into a more mech-type suit, semi-similar to Genos's. Genos uses a new special attack called Tactical Combination Promoted Rook. Genos says that his core will explode soon also. Due to clashing with Genos, Psykos was forced to stay still, so Tank Top takes the moment to throw parts of a building at her. Still stuck with Genos, Psykos opens up a monster mouth out of her back to shoot and destroy the building. But Atomic Samurai and Puri Puri Prisoner break out of the building, and Atomic Samurai slices her blast. Psykos starts to get really worried as Genos says, "The victory is ours." Atomic Samurai releases a series of slashes, seeming to finish her off with Atomic Beeline Slash. But as we've seen so many times, Psykos doesn't die easy. The attacks don't let up as Puri Puri Prisoner comes out with Vibration Dark Angel Rush. And if that wasn't enough, Darkshine comes up behind Puri Puri Prisoner and hits Psykos with Super Alloy Missile. These series of attacks force Psykos' real body to disconnect from the conjoined one, leaving her with her own body and then Orochi's body. Although Psykos escapes, the body she was merged with, Orochi, was still alive. That's when Bang and Bomb appear to finish it off. They combine with Cross-Fang Dragon Slayer Fist. Fubuki gets excited saying that they did it, but she hears Tornado's voice saying, "Not yet." Somehow, still with tons of strength, Tornado powers up to finish off Orochi, thinking it's still merged with Psykos. Fubuki is astonished, but the ground suddenly starts to shake. Tornado then starts to break off the Monsters Association from the base. She lifts it up into the sky and starts to flip it around. Tornado flips it and points the whole massive tower down at the ground. She begins to layer it with her power, making it glow green. Orochi's pitiful body looks up at the tower as Tornado says, "See ya." Tornado throws the tower down to the ground, aiming at Orochi. The tower completely crushes him. Tornado then flicks her finger, causing the entire tower to start spinning like a drill. The tower drills deep into the ground. Then Fubuki, Puri Prisoner, and Bang see someone fall to the ground. It's Genos who's starting to overload. Genos says he's pushed past his limit and will explode any moment. They ask if Drive Knight can do anything to help, and he says he's already left. After Tornado's barrier went down and she used her power to kill Orochi, Drive Knight just said his objective was completed and dipped. Fubuki goes over to Genos, who tells her to leave and not waste her life trying to save him, but she tells him just to shut up. Fubuki uses her power to try to contain all of the energy Genos' core is emitting. She struggles but stays strong with conviction as she contains his power. A final blast of energy comes from Genos, but Fubuki was successful. Genos' power settings reverted to somewhat normal levels considering the shape he's in. However, this use of energy took a massive toll on Fubuki and she collapses. Tornado then manages to stand and look for Fubuki and finds her injured, not knowing why. God knows how, but Tornado powers up again, asking who hurt Fubuki. But Fubuki explains no one did anything to her and Tornado calms down. Now, by no means is this the end of this arc. In fact, literally right after this, Tornado gets dragged into another fight against two more threat level dragon monsters. But as of the most recent chapters, nothing else happens in terms of fighting Psykos, besides we get a confirmation she's alive. So for now, that's the end of this specific fight. However, there is another interesting thing that happens to Tornado, which I'll quickly go over. After being above and beyond her limits, Tornado sees Blast in front of her, and he offers her power, but she asks who he is, making us aware it's not really Blast. We see the creature's true face, and it's God offering her his power. But then, for some reason, he vanishes. And right after that, a portal opens, and it's the real Blast. He's surprised that she was able to resist God's power, but then goes on to say how much she's grown, and he makes sure that Tornado is okay. I only bring up this piece of information because it's just interesting that both Psykos, Tatsumaki, and later on Garo all get offers from God. So there you go. That's just about the entire Psykos fight. And I know not too many people watch my videos, at least for right now, but I love making these videos, so if there's anything y'all want to see or hear about or know about, just put it in the comments and I'll make a video on it as soon as I can.